All right, welcome back here to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. You know, I don't know if I expressed it enough of just how much fun I have as this part of my job. It really is one of the top things that I get to do here for Gill Athletics. And I guess I didn't even introduce myself for you guys and gals that are listening for the first time. Mike Cunningham. I'm your host here on the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast. And I get to bring, here's the cool part of my job. I get to bring you really cool, interesting people around the country, sometimes around the world, here to the podcast and uplift and honor their journey in this great profession. You know, something that we have learned as we're getting close to 300 episodes is that there is no air quotes here, normal, traditional, whatever word you want to put in there, track to get to where you are today as a coach. We've had some amazing stories of people that didn't even do the sport. Other people have been amazing athletes at the sport, and then everything in between. And so I just love learning that journey. And today I got a really cool one too. This is someone I've had on my list for a while because there's some interesting aspects. She coaches track and field, so that's cool. I love that. And then she has an agency, a sports agency. She's an agent for sports, and that I don't know much about that. So I'm really interested in learning that. So help me welcome from Indiana Tech University. I almost said over in Indiana, but maybe you've already figured that part out. And also the, I think owner, I don't even want to assume, but maybe owner of Capture Sports Agency. She gave me the nod. Perfect. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Miss Chauntiel Smith. Chauntiel, how are you?
I am doing great. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing, man, you know what? No one ever asked me, Chantil. Thank you so much. I am doing fantastic. You know, we're recording this on a Friday, so that's cool. I'm a big college football fan, so I'm excited about tomorrow. And yesterday, I don't know if you caught it. Did you catch any of the, I think it's pronounced Athlos, the meet that was up in New York City? Did you get to check out any of
I
that?
did. I did not see that one.
You
I was
know,
actually training an athlete last night, so I didn't
yeah,
see that one.
I don't have that excuse. I honestly, and this is terrible coming from a track guy, I forgot. I had bookmarked the tweet because I think the meet was like I don't know if you'd call it multicast, simulcast on like Twitter, YouTube, and probably maybe Instagram or something like that. And I thought that was kind of cool. And so I was like, oh, I'll watch
Mhm.
it on Twitter when I'm at the house down in the basement. And literally, I came up to grab dinner. I don't know, around 8 o'clock. And I was like, oh, crud. I was like, I totally forgot. Now, my saving grace was like, well, I'll see everything on Twitter because I know everybody will post on Twitter. But have you seen any of the reactions or anything? Do you know anything about what went down?
I have not. I haven't looked at anything yet.
Supposedly amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, I think they had 6 races, obviously focused on women, focused on track, not field events, things like that. But there seems to be like a lot of positivity. I'm not hearing, we can be our worst enemy,
Yeah.
track and track people
Yeah.
and athletes and coaches. So I kind of expected a little bit of like, oh, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that and blah, blah, blah. I'm not really hearing that. So kind of
That's a
cool.
good thing.
Yeah, I'm excited. Alexis, I think is how you pronounce his name. One of the few men who's known better as their wife's husband. So
Yeah.
Serena Williams' husband. That's who Alexis is.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I love that they're investing in our sport first and foremost, and
Hmm.
I'm excited to see the future of that. Well, I'm excited to see not I am excited to see your future, but I'm excited to learn your past here. So, Chantil, let's hop into it. Why don't we start with, somewhere track had to come into your life. Maybe, we've had people who were, youth track athletes from like 6 years old to people who said, yeah, I didn't even do it until college. What about you? Where does track and field start for you?
Ooh. So I didn't start running track until my freshman year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a basketball head. Still
Hmm.
is a basketball head. So basketball was my first sport, and then it was track. So when I was in high school, basketball season was over, and there was nothing else to do. And then one of my close friends at the time was like, you should try track. And I'm like, what is track? I don't know what that is. So then I go out for it, actually start being really good at it. Didn't really know what was going on in track. I jogged the 200. Like, now that I'm coaching it, it's like, guys, we're not jogging the first 30 and then trying to sprint
Oh
it.
Lord, yeah.
Exactly what I did in high school because I didn't know anything about what was going on in my
Right.
mind. I gotta save my energy.
Right.
um, but yeah, I ran everything from the 100 to the 200, 4x1, 4x4s, all the little sprint relays, all that stuff. in high school. But like I said, got really good at it in high school. Went to state my junior and senior year. Finished fifth my junior year, and I think I finished seventh or 11th my senior year. Both in the 400. So went 56, 73 maybe.
Dude.
Yeah, my junior year in high school, and that was
Yeah.
like only with 3 years of running
Yeah.
track. So
Where are you growing up at? Where's this taking place?
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah. Oh, so okay, that's cool. And so what, if you don't mind me asking, like what years?
I think my junior year was 2010.
Oh, okay. So I used to coach at Ball State University
Okay.
back, yeah. So back in the '02 and '03 season. So, that tells you how old I am, Chauntiel. That's not really nice, but used to go obviously for many, many reasons, go to Fort Wayne for recruiting because, oh boy, what a hotbed of track and field up there in Northeast Indiana,
Yes.
for sure there. So you grew up kind of a basketball first love type thing, and you did track. Do you remember? It doesn't sound like necessarily like, oh, my freshman year after basketball, I joined track and like, oh, I fell in love. But maybe somewhere in high school, was there ever like a flipping point where it's like, oh boy, I'm actually a track athlete, not a basketball athlete? Or did you keep basketball love and like track kept as your second sport?
So I think basketball stayed my first love, but I also tell people all the time that in high school I wanted to go play in the WNBA, and that was the goal. I didn't care what was happening. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the WNBA,
Mhm.
and then it was like, okay, you're really not going. So it was like, so it was like, all right, what's next? So it didn't really click or nothing like really switched for track until I went to state, and I'm like, oh, okay, then I'm actually okay. I guess I'm
Yeah,
decent
yeah,
at this if I'm going to state.
yeah.
But it really wasn't something that I was like, yes, track. Let's
Hmm.
get out there and run
Yeah.
for a living.
That's fair. Yeah. Well,
So
there's a lot of people who don't have that. That's for sure.
yeah,
And have to remind for you guys and gals that are listening when she talks about going to state, and that's I'm a guy that does not believe whether you're in a small state, big state, 7 classes, 1 class. I don't believe all that is awesome. Like you can't control where you live and all those kind of things. So if a kid makes it to state, bravo, that's amazing. If they make it to the
yeah,
finals, holy cow, that's amazing. Don't forget the Indiana is a little special. First of all, it is a great track state, but it's 1 class. So when you're thinking about, going to state, like, oh, it's cool, but maybe there's 8 classes or something like that. There is one shot to go to Indiana. We learned that when we did our outdoor track and field state meet series, where we interviewed one coach from every state about their state meet series and had a fantastic time learning about Indiana and how tough it is. And as a guy who used to coach in the state, I used to love going to that state meet because
yeah.
it's one and done. Boy, here comes the 100. All right, you get the 8 best 100-meter runners or the 400. It's pretty phenomenal. So let's go senior year. You had success your junior year. You're all state. You make it to the finals and run a really good time. Things like that. You played basketball your senior year, so basketball still first love, and that's all good. What are you thinking about college? Not only like, well, you got kind of 3 things that I want to discuss. Were you thinking basketball or track or both for college? Um, what were you thinking about majoring in and what were you thinking like as a career at this point?
Yeah. So I think for me, because of what I didn't know, I think my senior year, that's when I actually started to apply to colleges.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like I tell all the athletes now, I didn't know anything about visiting these schools. And at the same time, me and my family didn't have the finances to go
Mhm.
and visit these schools either. So
Right.
I knew nothing about visiting these schools. I didn't talk to any schools. I didn't sign with Indiana Tech to run until July or August because I
Wow.
didn't know the process at all.
But you were, hold on now. You were getting recruited though.
I think so.
Because you said you ran, 56, even 57 in around 2010. I coached at Ball State in '02, '03, and we were solid. So it's not like, I was out trying to get 65-second girls because I was trying to build a program. We had a great program. And I was recruiting, especially as a junior mark, 56, 57, in that range. I'm recruiting that at Ball State. But not, but am I hearing you say not to where you were cognizant, like I'm trying to think how to put this. Like in today, 2024, boy, I can watch a kid's recruitment on Twitter, like all the
Yeah.
whole process. I see when a letter gets sent, and everything's so publicized.
Yep.
It was a little different, where this is a time frame back. It's not like it was today, so just not the same kind of, I guess, intensity or depth in your experience, what you experienced.
Yeah, for sure. So I really wasn't on social media like that. Wasn't on the
Mhm.
MySpaces and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So
Oh,
I probably
MySpace. Oh,
wasn't.
wow.
Yeah.
You
So I
ain't
really.
that old to know MySpace. Get out of here.
I'm old enough, Mike. But yeah, I don't think that I was, like I said, I don't know how this was back then, but I don't think I was able to be found that way or something like that. But
Mhm.
um yeah, I went 5673. Like I got a few offers from, I think it was maybe like a D2 school, Wheaton, I think maybe.
Mhm.
Um and I think I maybe had one other one, but at the same time, like I said, didn't have the finances to go
Right.
visit,
Right.
didn't really know what the process was, because I was the first person to even attempt to go to college in my family,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
didn't
I,
really know what
I,
that was.
I think it's interesting. We used to, this is my experience. We used to talk about potential first time college. I'm a first time college kid in my family as well. And how much of a disadvantage that person is, not necessarily because of finances and stuff, although maybe typically that is also part of it too, but just culture, right?
Mhm.
My wife and I, we have two kids, eighth grader and fifth grader. We both went to college. We have talked about college, not necessarily them going or anything, but like, oh, we went to college, and my wife went to University of Illinois right here. So, my wife has walked our kids around campus and like, oh, I lived in that place. Like it's part of our culture. We just, we went to college, and if it's right for you, we expect you to go, but they know about it from today.
Yep.
Me and maybe Chauntiel, you have similar experience. My family, we didn't talk about college. The only college we talked about was Saturday football. And yeah, I certainly wasn't going to play football in college. So it wasn't like, oh, I go to school at these places that I'm watching. It was just, I don't know, it was just like this thing over there, and you just didn't discuss. And I'm not sure we still talk about it that way or concerned about it that way today in 2024. And here we are
Yeah.
back in, earlier in that, where it's like, man, there's kids that are highly capable, but because it's not in their culture, it gets lost for them.
Yep.
That's it.
Mhm.
So was knowing that Indiana Tech is in Fort Wayne, and you said spoiler alert, you ended up going to school there. I'm going to ask you this way, but I think you're going to correct me. Was Indiana Tech your safety school? But maybe not, because you weren't even.
I didn't even know that Tech was recruiting me
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
until like last minute. I think I finally got an email maybe from Edgar, and it was
yeah.
like, we're trying to get you or something. And I was like, I mean, I guess
Right.
I have this meeting or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know anything. Tech was not on my radar at all. If anything,
Wow.
I think the only school that I was really looking at was, I was trying to go to Richmond,
Mhm.
to run track there, and that was because that was like three of the schools I looked at. Once I actually started getting in the process, but I was so late in the process, it
Right.
was like, oh well. So I didn't know, and then Indiana Tech ended up being, that last resort.
And I'm just hearing track, no basketball recruiting.
Nope.
Yeah. Which that's, I always think about like the basketballs and footballs and stuff like that. Like how harder it must be to recruit. Because with track, like I know you want to know about their their mentality and leadership and things like that, and are they good people, and I know to a degree you want to see their body type, are they tall, and all that kind of stuff. But if you just wanted to recruit off of times, you could,
Yeah.
right? The 100
Yep.
meter dash in Fort Wayne is the same 100 meter dash in Texas as it is in Sarasota, Florida, LA, California, whatever, right?
Yep.
So if you're running 11.3 in high school, boy, I can, even if I don't get you better, you're gonna run 11.3 for me, I should assume, right? Basketball is tougher. I mean, you could have a kid that's, a superstar, but maybe she's 6 foot and everybody else is 5'3", and it's like, well,
Yep.
of course she averages 30 points, but she ain't gonna do that in my league. It's just gotta be tough for her.
Yeah.
So, okay, you end up choosing Indiana Tech. What were you thinking? Where's your head at this point in regards to, I want to become a teacher, a doctor, business owner? What are you thinking career-wise as an 18-year-old?
I had no idea.
Mm.
I think I just chose sports management because I've been in sports all my life. So
Hmm.
I didn't I didn't know no other way to go but to choose sports management when I made my decision.
Did you know what that meant, or was it just like, oh, it has the word sport in it, I like sport?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Exactly what it was, Mike.
I'll figure out what the management part is, but it's going to have
Yeah.
sports. So yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Is coaching at all in your thought process?
That was never a thing.
Like never a thing, like you didn't even think, because what I've been amazed, in the first 100 episodes that we've had here, it's been amazing to me how many people, now I expect it, but how many people as, 14, 18-year-olds who, we know become track coaches, have a great relationship with their high school track coach, but never think of it as a career when it's right in front of you. It's like, well, that guy or gal right there is coaching. Like they're getting paid. Like I can't remember what coach it was, but one coach was like, oh, I just thought like my coach just came out to have fun. Like I didn't know that was like a career, like they got paid. And it's like, yeah, it's the whole thing, man. It's the whole thing. All right. So you start Indiana Tech. Now this is a whole different world now, right? So you start practice early, you hadn't done track, you've been doing basketball, things like that, classes, you're taking sports management. Talk to us about your college time there at Indiana Tech.
Well, it was actually pretty fun. It was definitely a change. And I think I even tell my athletes this now is that you have to be able to adjust. And I think my first year, I didn't adjust well. Like I was so used to doing things the way we did it in high school, where I was just like, remember when I told you in the 200, I was like, I was jogging the first couple meters and then I would start sprinting. And in high school, I thought that was okay. You get to college and you're like, that's not okay. That's not okay at all, because all these athletes that are here, they're here for a reason. They got recruited for a reason and they actually run. So you had to adjust to that. And then you also had to adjust to the workouts. Because, we would have in high school, I think we were having like repeat 200s and we had like 15 of those. And it was just like, okay. And we didn't lift either. So now you get to college and now you're on a lifting schedule and now you have to get used to the workouts and having classes and doing your homework without a parent or a teacher saying, hey, you got this due and stuff like that. So it's a huge adjustment, or it was a huge adjustment for me. I think that helps me be able to mentor to the freshmen that do come in and stuff like that. So
did you struggle with it? Because it is you're spot on here. It is a major difference. There's so many more expectations of you. And while you certainly have support, now, yeah, you're in the same town. Are you living at home or are you living on campus right off the bat?
At first, the first year I stayed on campus and then I was at home.
Yeah. So that first year, you said it right. Your mom or dad or family, no one's over your shoulder to do homework or anything like that. Did you struggle at first, or did you like fish and water, take to it, and like, oh yeah, this is me, I'm good?
At first, not really, only because I knew that if I didn't do well, then it was gonna be problems at home. And then also, if I didn't do well, I knew that I wasn't gonna be able to run either. So if I didn't do what I was supposed to do in the classroom, it was gonna be a waste of time. So, and we also had study table hours too. So I made sure that I was, in those study table hours and trying to get as much help as I could.
Now it's interesting how you said that about like a little bit of paraphrasing here. I knew if I didn't study, I couldn't run track. If I didn't do well in the grades, I didn't run track. That means you cared about track, and you haven't expressed that you didn't care about track, but up to this point, it's certainly been basketball first. Is track, now that you, like, as you're transitioning from senior year track through summer into fall, now basketball's kind of taken aside, you're not playing basketball in Indiana Tech, you start practicing things like that. Is track starting to move up in importance, or do you still have like a left eye over, like, man, did you go to basketball practice and just watch, like, man, why can't I be on this team? Where are we at track basketball?
It's still, basketball was still a little bit higher, and I think that probably was a part of the adjustment too, because you start fall, that's preseason for track, when I really should be dribbling the basketball, but I'm not. So for that, even still, Edgar's probably, he can't do anything now.
That's right.
But I was definitely doing intramurals. While running track, I was playing basketball intramurals, but I wasn't doing it like every.
I think the statute of limitations of track people playing basketball never ends. You're going to get in trouble for that one. I mean, that is like the bane of every track coach existence is basketball and intramural basketball. Oh, I can't believe you admitted. You know, we're recording, right? I can't believe
Yeah.
you admitted that. Holy cow! Wow, that's awesome. How about I think I'm like want to double click into this because I'm interested because of my own experience here too. How was, as much as you want to talk and share with us here about this, how was the support from family and friends group? And what I mean by that is this, you know, being the first in the family to go to college. Again, I talked about, you know, the family didn't have that culture. It's not like maybe mom or dad or uncles, aunts went to college necessarily. And so well, yeah, that's what Chauntiel's doing. That's what you expect. Not necessarily that they were like negative necessarily, because that's kind of sometimes that's more TV drama type stuff where
Yeah.
you know you should be here back with us. But maybe sometimes like I don't think my parents knew how to support me really, not financially, just mentally and talking to me. They didn't know what I was going through because they had never
Yeah.
done it. How was support from family as you're going through the first year of college there?
So the first year it really wasn't that bad. But it was a lot of you gotta call us more. You gotta come
Mm,
visit us more. You know, and I'm like, listen guys, the phone works both ways here. And
that's
I'm
true.
doing practice, I have classes, I'm in this college world now, you know, I'm trying to live a little. Not do anything crazy, but I'm just trying to live
Mhm.
a little. So I think that was the only thing that I had to do with my freshman year was a lot of just, you know, we need you to come back home. We need you to call more and all this other type of stuff. So I had to
Yeah.
figure out what that adjustment was.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you're even in the same town, so a little bit easier in that sense. These kids that go away even a couple hours. I mean,
Yeah.
some don't have car. I mean, that's tough. And then for crying out loud, the ones that go states away, I'm just always concerned about that support system around. Did you start finding like a air quotes here, family at Indiana Tech, like the team members, a track, or maybe a roommate or classmate? We always talk about athletes and like, oh, did your team become family? It's like, well, you're going to school with 1,000 other people, like
Yeah.
English class with a bunch of non-athletes too sometimes.
Yeah.
So did you start finding a family?
Yeah. So I think within like that first day, I think it was during move-in day. And one of the student life people at the time, who's a really good friend of mine, Darius Darling, was the one who was going around introducing, some of the freshmen to all the people. And we ended up all connecting, and we've been friends ever since. Like we're still friends to this day. We've been in each other's weddings. We've been to big parts of every event that's happening in our lives and stuff like that. So
That's cool.
ever since day one, like that's been our friend group, and it's basketball players, it's
Mhm.
um, engineers,
Yep.
everything like that. So it was pretty good to find that group early.
I hate that we have to pay for that, but to me, that's one of the most valuable parts of college. We have to
Yeah.
pay for, to go to the school. But I remember someone, I think it was when I was in high school, my high school football coach was like, look around. And, he's like, these will be the friends of yours forever. And I was, now I look back, I graduated in 94. So 30 years ago. And I'm like, bro, I talked to like my best friend from high school I talked to. That's it. But
Yep.
from college, I talked to a good handful, and I'm somebody who doesn't really have a lot of deep friendships for moving around all that much. But college, I have way more because I went through more, I think,
Yep.
in the 18 to 22 year range.
Yep.
All right. So talk to us about Indiana Tech as an undergrad. You're going to school, you're running track, you're learning that, oh, I can't jog to conserve air, definitely air quotes, conserve my energy.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your college athletic experience.
So freshman year, I think that was, like I said, the hardest year. That was the year I had to adjust.
Yeah.
Sophomore year, a lot more was asked of me,
Mm.
so I had to step up a little bit. I think my freshman year I ended up going to nationals,
Wow.
both indoor and outdoor. I think I was an alternate for the 4x4. The crazy part is that really killed me. My freshman year, I went from running a 56 to running a 59, and I couldn't understand for the life of me what was going on.
Yeah.
But now I know because the adjustment. I wasn't bought in, and I
Uh-huh.
wasn't adjusting at the same time. So
Talk to us a little bit more about that because one of my favorite things to do. I almost called the podcast, instead of Connections, I almost called it Mythbusters. I
Yeah.
like busting myths. One of my favorite myths
Yeah.
that we talk about a lot is that high school coaches can't coach in college. What a terrible, terrible myth. But another that I believe is a myth is, on Twitter world, we'll talk a lot about how, I think someone used the actual percentage of 80% once, and I called them out, like, really, show me stats, like 80%. 80% of high schoolers don't improve in college. And that's just bunk. There are some, sure. You in your freshman year, you go from 56 to 59. If we were to look at you on paper, 56 point out of high school, basketball. So she didn't focus on track, didn't lift during high school. So obviously didn't have a fall track season for us. Didn't really even necessarily have like like a internal drive of like, I'm going to run track. You know what I'm saying? So like you're like this really raw athlete running 56 point, by the way.
Yeah.
Get her to college. Oh my gosh. Let her start training in the fall. Get rid of as much of basketball as possible. Lift weights. In a program that has a culture of, we talk about nationals and things like that. Oh man, she's gonna run. I mean, maybe a bad year she's gonna run 55, but she might run 54. And you end up running 59. And you talked about you didn't buy in, things like that. Talk to us, like, why looking back now, because we have experience now, like, we can, hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, besides, or maybe even going into more about, you didn't buy in, because we see this, I don't want to say common, but it does happen, and we instantly blame the college coach. Oh, they stink. Look, they took her from 56 to 59. It's like, oh man, that coach had nothing to do. There's so many other things. Talk to us about that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Um, I just believe that the reason why, again, I struggled that first year was because I wasn't used to the practices.
Mhm.
There were times where I may have felt like, all right, maybe I shouldn't be here because all these girls are kind of like crazy fast, and I'm just like,
Interesting.
and I think I came in as the fastest 400 runner in my class, but that that wasn't something that was like pushing me to go forward. Like you said, it wasn't something that was driving me. I was just like, okay, I guess that's cool. I don't know. I don't do track like that, so I don't know what's cool and what's not cool. So I think me being there that first year, there was a lot of cloudiness. Like I didn't know
Mm.
what was going on or anything like that. So as I continuously went through the years, that's when I started to buy in and I got better. I started to see my 200 time drop. I could have went a lot faster in high school, but again, I was jogging. So it went from like a 27 in high school to a 25-1, in college, and I'm like, oh, this is how it feels to actually run a 200.
Mm.
And then I remember when I qualified for my first nationals myself, and I ended up I think I got eighth at nationals. I think I went 55.
Wow.
And then I think I was splitting 54 on the relays and stuff like that. So I was seeing the progress happening, which was, I think that's when things started to shift in my career at Tech for the most part.
And that started happening sophomore year.
It was like, yeah, sophomore and junior year.
Yeah, that's what I'm just amazed at, when people quickly point the finger at the college coach, which is all ego, by the way. When someone's doing that, in my opinion, bad ego. Ego's not bad.
Yeah.
Bad ego's bad. It's bad ego, because what you're describing there, it's very common, what you're describing. And you're even kind of leaving some parts out. And what I mean by that is, college classes are different than high school classes. Not only, obviously the intensity, but the scheduling is that, high school, it's very authoritarian, right? Class, school starts at 8, you don't leave until 2:30 or whatever, there
Yep.
is no in between, there's lunch break. Where in college, it's like, man, I got an 8 o'clock and then I don't have another class till 1 or something, what do I
Yep.
do? And obviously homework, things like that. But there's also, when I'm a freshman, 18-year-old, and my friends want to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning doing whatever. I'm not even saying,
Yeah.
maybe there's things you maybe, legally not supposed to be doing, just staying up to talk or play board game, whatever. You don't necessarily have that in high school. Mom says, no, you got school tomorrow, get in bed,
Yep.
So all these things are happening. You got pressures from home. Hey, how come you don't visit as much? Why don't you call as much? You didn't have that in high school. And by the way, you're at practice every day and you're supposed to improve on that.
Hmm.
It's unfair to automatically label all this on the track coach. It's
Yeah.
as you're going through, so you're getting better athletically. That's awesome. That's always fun, of course. Uh, how about academically slash future career wise? Are you starting to learn what sports management is and seeing what the different routes that is? And talk to us about that progression of what you're thinking career wise through college.
Yeah. So for the most part, I had a really great advisor, Craig Dyer. We're still really close to this day. Went to go see him yesterday on campus, but I learned a lot from him as far as the sports management area and how that goes. And I think my junior year is when I still don't know how this even came about, but somehow being a sports agent just fell in my lap. I don't know where it came from. I don't even know how I started searching for the stuff to begin with. It's still crazy to me to this day. Like I still don't know how I even came up to even jump into this career at all. Had no idea what it was.
Yeah, if you
Um,
were going to list like 100, hey, you're going to get a sports manager degree, list 100 different jobs that you might do with a sports manager degree. I'm not sure agency would come up until like number 100. I mean, there's a lot of, a lot of things to do in college level, a lot of things to do in high school level. Here we're a manufacturer of sports equipment, so there's private sector type stuff. Agents, we might, oh yeah, around 80. Oh yeah, maybe an agent, maybe, I don't know, so you still don't even know how that even like, but junior year, it was like, oh, was junior year like, oh, that's what I'm going to be? Or was it more of like, oh, that's interesting?
I think it was more so of a, oh, that's interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
then I started, again, Craig Dyer told me that I need to get my LinkedIn together. So
Mm-hmm.
I started doing that. And then that's when I found sports agents on LinkedIn. And I found a boxer by the name of Adrian Clark, which we are still very close to this day. And he's one of my biggest supporters. And I found him and I was just asking questions like, hey, I'm a junior, what do I need to know? Like, where do I need to go? What do I need to tap into? Stuff like that. And we were just talking and he was telling me a whole bunch of stuff. And then that's how I also got my internship at a small sports agency down in Dallas. And I was doing that while still running track. So I was running track and being a player agent in college, doing all that all at once.
What's the, because sports agency, to be a sport agent entails a lot of other things. I don't believe you can just necessarily get a sports management degree and boom, you can be a player
Yeah.
representative. Like, there's a lot of knowledge, experience, things like that. When you're intern, like what are you doing as an intern? Was this the I'm gonna call it stereotypical, TV movie drama where it's like, oh, you know what I did my first year, Mike? I got coffee for the guy and I just listened. That's all I could do. Or were you involved? Like, did they involve you? Like, what does an internship look for trying to be a sports agent?
So mine was different. So mine was virtual. And
Hmm.
I think that was a change in things because I was still running while this sports agency was in Dallas.
Right, right, right.
So I was recruiting talent. So I was looking at athletes. I was making player profiles, figuring out based off of the athletes that they were looking at. I had to make a player profile on, okay, if this is who we're looking at, what's their stats? What type of person is this athlete? And stuff like that. I even put together I think it was a camp. I put a camp together for the agency, and the agency came actually to Fort Wayne, and we did a camp and everything else like that. And
Wow.
yeah,
I mean, that's interesting that they allowed you and supported you to do a camp Fort Wayne because it's like, yeah, you're the intern. Like, okay, maybe we'll do that down here in Dallas, but that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of trust.
yeah, it was fun. I loved it for sure, and it was basketball too. So I still felt
Oh,
the
okay, I
connection.
should have known.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do agents at this point in your knowledge set, junior going into senior year here, uh, are d- are you thinking sport aid? 'Cause I don't know. We're going to get into here a little bit more in a little bit. Are you thinking, oh, I want to be a sports agent for basketball? Like, you had WNBA dreams. It was like, oh yeah, I want to be agent for women's basketball. Or was it track or was it global? Like, oh, sport. I want to be a sport agent. I don't care if they're boxers, football. cricket. I don't care if there's,
Yeah.
if they're getting a salary, there's things that sports agents can do.
Yeah. So the crazy thing is my advisor put me in contact with a law professor that was at Indiana Tech who used to be an NFL agent.
Wow.
And I spoke with him and I pretty much was telling him, how I felt about being a sports agent and why I wanted to be a sports agent in the first place. And after I got done, he looked at me and he said, I'm going to help you because I can hear how passionate you are about this.
That's cool.
And he showed me pretty much the blueprint of it. He sat down, we looked at contracts. He helped me register my own company. He helped me understand contracts, everything like that. And I think that was the best part of it all. And the crazy part is, believe it or not, I think I went to be a track and field agent first, but I didn't pass. I didn't pass the test. I think I missed it by like 6 points. But the thing is, I went there and I seen so many of the track and field athletes. It was so crazy. Like, it was Allison Felix was there, Doc Payton was there, and it was just like, it was like, yo, like this is pretty cool.
Right.
I've never thought, and to this day, like, people be like, oh, do you know who this track athlete is? I was like, no, but I can tell you who this basketball player is. Like, and it's still like to this day, like I'm still learning.
Yeah.
A lot of the track athletes from back in the day and stuff like that. But I think track was the first sport I tried to become an agent in. And I haven't went back since. I'm not saying I'm not going back. I do plan on going back sooner or later.
Because you have to take it's a specific test for each, I'm gonna call it league, and for this case, USATF is the league.
Yep.
But it's each, like football has its own requirement and test, and basketball and things like that. Okay, all right.
Yep.
So there's not like a general sports agency test and accreditation. It's each one has a little different nuances.
Yep. And I think I took that test in my senior year. So again, still don't know anything about track. I know the bare minimum, but I know more about basketball. And I was like, I've ran track for 8 years now. Let's go see, what I can do. Like, this should be easy. Like, I do this, right? So I should be fine. They were like, yeah, open book, 50 questions. I got there. I said, what is this? That was the fastest 2 hours I've ever seen in my life.
But many of great stories have started with, I was like, this has got to be easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I told myself I'm not going back until I'm completely 100% ready.
And I get these tests, meaning like a sports agent is going to be in a control of a lot of things for an athlete that the athlete will not have control or not have time to have control over. So you kind of want a little bit of a rigorous test to kind of weed out. You don't necessarily weed out bad people, but you at least weed out people who aren't going to prepare necessarily for what it takes. So as you go to senior year and graduation, I'm still not hearing like, oh yeah, and I want to be a coach. Where's coach sit in this really crazy world? I mean, this is really interesting. I say crazy in a good way. This is interesting. Where's coaching at all at this point?
Nowhere.
None.
Not one bit.
Wow.
Like, I think by the time I graduate, my company was already started. Like, I started my company in December of my senior year. And that was with the help of the NFL agent because he helped me get it registered with the state of Indiana and everything else like that. He helped me put pretty much everything together after that. So the company was already established and everything like that before I had graduated college.
Was it capture sports agency from the get-go? Why did you choose that?
Honestly, I didn't choose it. My mom did.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Mom. That's great. Yeah.
So we had a list of names. Like, once I told her, like, this is what I wanted to do, like, she was very excited about it because, again, she didn't know, I didn't know, we didn't know nothing about being a sports agent. So I think having Dre there to help guide and everything like that was perfect. So he told me one day when we were talking, he's like, all right, you gotta come up with a name. And I'm like, okay, who just comes up with names like this on the spot? So I went home, me and my mom sat down and talked about it, and she's like, you should do Chauntiel Smith Management. No.
I was gonna ask, does the CS yeah. Okay, keep going.
I was like, I don't want my name any part of this because at the end of the day it has nothing to do with me. I don't want it to be centered around me. I just want it to be able to focus on, the athletes at the end of the day. Um, so she wanted my initials to be in there. So somehow
Mm.
my initials is kind of in there, except the fact that I got married. So now it's like Chauntiel Smith-Jones. So the CS is not like, it's still there, but
You
not
needed
there.
to marry somebody whose last name started with an A. That's where you, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So when we were writing it down, she came up with Capture Sports Agency, and we looked at it, and I was like, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the one. And then I took it to Dre, and then we put it in the computer, and you have to figure out if anybody has those names at all.
Right, right, right,
Make sure the website's available and stuff like that. So we did all that.
right.
Nobody had it, so it was green light for us.
What a what a cool example of, in professional terms, we might call it network. In more familial terms, we might call it family and support network. So mom's helping you with the name. Dre's helping you with the things that sometimes we don't think about till 5, 10 years into until it bites us. And it's like, oh, I can't get a website. Somebody
Yeah.
has Capture Sports Toys or something, they're a toy company and so they call them. So I can't get that. And or 5 years later you get sued because it's like, yeah, you stole my name. I had that name registered 10 years ago and you didn't do your due diligence. So I mean, that's a really cool example of, the quote unquote, it takes a village. Like we're not on our own. We can't be on our own. We're much better when we have other people going with us.
Yeah.
And I think those are two cool examples. And bravo to mom, by the way, being the creative one. I love
Yeah.
that. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. So you go, so you start in junior, senior year with this agency. So now this comes with this sounds like a statement, but it comes with a question mark. Now your identity is wrapped into being a sports agent.
Yep.
Yeah. You graduate. What happens?
I graduate. What did I do first? I applied for the WNBA. I got registered, certified with the WNBA, and
Wow.
then I think certified with the WNBA in October, and then I got certified with overseas basketball, which is FIBA, in March.
Wow.
So those were my two um, that I focused on the most. So around that time, it was both 2016 and 2017 is when I got registered as a agent with the WNBA and overseas basketball. But at the same time, I tell people this all the time. I knew nothing about being a sports agent. Still, after everything with Dre, like he helped with the beginning part, but I didn't know what happened in the middle. I had no idea. I didn't even have a business plan, so
Mhm.
I was lost. So I'm still being a sports agent, but now I'm working in a factory. I think I was working in a factory for a while still being a sports agent, and then
What
I
do you mean?
realized
What do you mean working in a factory?
so like the car manufacturers and stuff like that. So I'm still being a sports agent while working in like hot
Yeah.
manufacturing places, warehouses,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and I'm working 12-hour shifts and stuff like that while still being a sports agent.
Yeah. Well, the dream of like, I don't want to be working this. I want to be a successful sports agent.
Yep.
Wow. How did you manage that? That's tough.
I think that taught me time management. That's where that
Mm.
came from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it definitely was a lot, but I think it got to the point where I was like, I can't be the sports agent that I need to be and still be working 12-hour shifts
Mm-hmm.
at a warehouse. Like I'm supposed to be at these games. I have clients calling me, I can't answer because I'm on the floor, and it's like, you're taking me away from what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I think that's when coaching came in.
As a way to have some more time, like to gain back
Yep.
time. Yeah. Before we get into coaching, it's interesting. Like I feel like you took the hard path, which we may learn is the right path, to where it is. But yeah, I think about jobs like sport agent, trying to think of other jobs, maybe DJ. I want to be a radio DJ. I want to be maybe an actor. I'm trying to think of these things like, so there's some majors that you can go into college and they're very like you're majoring in this, so you're going to go be this teacher. Education would be the easiest one. Like, hey, I'm going to go study elementary education, and when you graduate, you are going to go become a teacher. And we talk about with those type of positions. Engineering would be another one. Medical school, you know what you're going to be because of that degree. And we talk about how important it is for mentors and support staff for those, like when
Mhm.
first year teacher, like, oh man, thank goodness there's going to be some other teachers to help guide you along the way. In jobs like this, sport agent, there is no major for sport agent. So if you're going to be a sport agent, the easier, not easy, the easier path was, oh, I'm going to go work for an agency. That's how I'm going to learn what this actually means to be a sport agent. And then X amount of time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I'm going to start my own agency. You off the, because so like when you say, yeah, I still don't know what it means. I feel that it's like, oh, well, yeah, you didn't major in this.
Yeah.
You didn't go work for, what's the most famous agent? Drew Rosenhaus, probably, right? You
Yeah.
didn't go work in Drew's agency and like, oh, Drew and his people, like I got it. Like I sat in all these things I learned. They gave me then I started motivating. You're like pedaling into a path that is black in front of you, all dark. I can't see anything,
Yep.
but I know to try to move forward. I don't know where
Yep.
I'm going, but I'm moving forward.
Yep.
Did that scare you? I think that's the right way I want to ask that.
At the beginning, it did. I tell this story often. Like before I even decided to create my own sports agency, I was in prayer one time, and God was like, I need you to start your own sports agency and bring it to Fort Wayne. And I was like, yeah, you're crazy because I don't know what that even is. Like you're talking to the wrong person.
Right, right,
So
right.
then it happened again, and I was in prayer, and it came up again, and I was just like, there's no way you want me as a young female to succeed in this industry when it's male dominated. There's no way. And he literally said, if I called you to do this, then you're more than qualified. And at that point, I had to say, okay, I'll do it. I don't know where I'm going, but I trust you, and I'm just gonna let it go. Wherever happens, it's gonna happen. And that was it.
Earlier on our pre-interview, I made the mention about, sometimes we have to see something to believe that we can do it, right? And like one of the sub goals, if you will, for me in this podcast is, I look at our athletic makeup, and these are going to be very vague, like, I'm not getting to specific percentages, but roughly, out of all of our athletes, roughly 50% white, 50% African American.
Yep.
When I look at our track coaches, I don't see roughly 50% white, 50% African American. Same with male and female. We're roughly 50% male and 50% female on our athletes. But then when I look at our coaching body, I don't see roughly 50% male. I see, much majority of another way. And so I like making sure that I have women coaches
Mm-hmm.
on the podcast, and that I have coaches of color on this podcast, because early, like I still remember, I'm pretty sure it was Karen Dennis, now retired, former head coach of the State University. And she told a story. I'm pretty sure it was her, told the story of how one of the first coaches she had was an African-American woman. And she was like, whoa, like, this is the first one. Like, I thought it was all supposed to
Yeah.
be white dudes. Like, wait a minute. So does that mean I can become a track coach?
Yep.
And I can't remember if it was Karen, but this person, let's just say it was Karen, was like, oh, then I'm good. I want to be that. And she saw it. And so she could become it. And so I want to make sure people see, hey, women can be coaches. So if you're
Yep.
a young lady who's listening, you're an athlete, or not in coaching, you're in the professional world, but you're not in coaching at this point. You ran track back in the day and you're like, yeah, I can't be a coach. I'm a woman. There's women coaches. Or maybe you're a person of color, and you're like, well, yeah, that's not a gig for me. It's like, no, it's a gig for you,
Yep.
for sure. I'm curious, in your world, and I also, when I have these type of conversations here, Chauntiel, I also have a lot of self-awareness that you're talking to a white dude. You're talking to the
Yeah.
exact thing that we see everywhere. And so I see white dudes everywhere too, right? It's what I see.
Yeah.
I have the assumption that the majority of sports agents are white males.
Mm-hmm.
How are you navigating? You kind of open the door a little bit of like, yeah, I'm a woman, and it's a male dominant sport. How are you're not seeing you in front of you. You're not seeing like, oh, look at these 10 African American women who are sports agents who, represent Michael Jordan and
Yeah.
whatever, you're not seeing that. How are you? I'm not sure even how to ask this question, Chauntiel. How does that make you feel? Let's start with that. Let's take the broader. When you're staring at, you go to take that test for
Hmm.
FIBA and WNBA, I have to assume that room was probably full of white males, and you're like, hi. How do you keep going? How does that not beat you back and say, hey, no, this isn't the right place for you?
I think it's my faith
Mm,
because, again, like I said, once I heard that thing where it's like, if I called you to do this and you're more than qualified, at that point, nobody can tell me that I can't be here.
mhm,
Nobody can tell me no. You can tell me no all you want, but that's not going to shake me.
mhm.
I think I've had a few people in my career where they're like, you can't do this. You're too young. You're a female. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You can think
Oh,
what you want. And
I didn't think about that, Chauntiel. You got 3 strikes. You're young too. That's right. Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You can say what you want, but at the end of the day, God has a bigger plan for me. And he's already told me what this is going to be. And I'm not going to let you steer me away from that. So there's plenty of people that say stuff like that all the time. But there's a few things that I have to think about. I have to think about, the journey that God has me on. I have to think about my family. I have
Mm.
to think about the athletes who I'm impacting, the athletes whose lives that I'm changing. Because if I go away because of what somebody told me, what is that going to do for the athlete who actually needs me there? So that's the things that keep me going, with being a sports agent and being a coach at the same time.
Because I hope I'm wrong. I have to feel you alluded to there that a lot of people told you, no, you can't do this. Oh, and by the way, I said 3 strikes. Maybe the 4th strike is you're opening your own agency. Again, I have to believe that most people probably start in an agency. Oh, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
5th strike is, yeah, okay, sure, maybe Chauntiel, but not in Fort Wayne.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Maybe Indy, maybe, but really you need to go to, the New Yorks, Miami, whatever, maybe the hot LA, I assume, things
Mm-hmm.
like that, right? That's
Yep.
amazing to me. That really is. That's really amazing. Uh, when you talk about, God speaking to you, I'm not sure it's a Bible verse, but I've heard this where they say God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Yep.
And that's what this sounds like. It's like, because
Yep.
I like how you, and I like when people get real about faith. So I appreciate your openness and authenticity to discuss that. But I like the realness there when you're like, yeah, God told me that, and I was like, you got the wrong person. You must have, maybe it's someone over there, but you got like you the pushback, and then
Yeah.
what does God do? He pushes back.
Yep. He does that. He has a funny way of telling people like, "Hey, no, I meant that. Go do
Love
it."
that. Love that. All right, so you start coaching track. I'm hearing really out of a necessity or desire to gain back some of my time so I can work on capture sports agency here.
Yeah.
So how'd that go? How'd that start working out?
Well, I actually reached out to Egger. I
Mhm.
think it was like 2020, like in the summer maybe. And I was like, "Hey,
Well, that's the wrong time to work out to
yeah,
call, by the way. Yeah, okay. All right.
it is." And I was like, I was thinking about, trying to, get back into coaching, something like that, or not get back into coaching, but something's came up where I think, I want to be able to give back to the track team, especially at
Mhm,
Indiana Tech.
mhm,
And even when I did graduate, like Ager had me come back and speak to the teams and stuff like that to talk about leadership and stuff like that. So I still had a connection to the team
mhm.
and stuff like that. So asking him about this, I didn't think it was a far ask, but at the same time, I felt like he would have said no. So when he said yes, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, I've been coaching at Indiana Tech ever since. This is my 5th year.
Earlier, I didn't ask it like this, but a lot of times I'll ask someone in your situation of basketball and track. I'll say, are you a basketball player who's running track, or are you a track kid who's running basketball? You're clearly, back then at least, you were a basketball player who also ran track. As you're at least starting coaching, and you can answer even up till today, are you a track coach who also has their own sports agency company, has their own company, or are you a sport agent who also coaches track?
I'm a sports agent that also
Yeah,
coaches
yeah, and
track.
that's fair. But and I should have maybe even I appreciate you not openness to you just answer that and trust me on that. No judgment. You know, I know sometimes it can
Yeah,
be like, well, dude, I'm on the track coach podcast. Am I supposed to say track coach for?
yeah,
No, that's fair. Because what I want, one of the big parts of this, there's two big goals of the podcast. One is to uplift and honor what you do as a track coach, and we're certainly going to get into that. And it's been amazing, even so far, what we've seen of track coaches that have poured into you. You know, your high school coaches and your college coaches certainly, and look how they're continue to pour into you, saying, "Yeah, sure, come coach with us. We'll figure this out." I love that. So one is to uplift and honor your journey in this great profession, but also to show people like there is. I hate to use the old term, more than one way to skin a cat. Are we allowed to say that anymore? I just thought about that. Maybe that's
I don't know, but I
yeah.
get.
Yeah. There's many ways to do things. Let's just be
Yeah.
safe here. Yeah. I just thought about that. I was like, man, that's some pet stuff, not real good. Anyway, that there's a lot of different people doing a lot of different things in our sport. Now I don't know what to say. So I love that. It's like, yeah, I'm a sports agent. I'm a business owner first, and yes, I coach track and field. That's cool. I love that because you're still pouring into and supporting our great sport and our great profession. So let's focus on the track coaching part first, and then we'll definitely get back because I'm just super fast.
Yeah.
One guy who's become a very good friend was on this podcast a long time ago, Quinn Pack, Coach Q, which has led me to a lot of other great friendships. Again, connections was the very appropriate term for this. I invited him onto the podcast for one and only one reason. He is a birder. Do you know what a birder is?
I do not.
You've seen these people. They chase birds and take pictures like they take pictures of birds. They're
Uh-huh.
birders. They like to say, oh, I caught my 200 and something species. They like to
Oh,
do,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's cool. It's interesting. But I knew nothing about it, and I was like, hey, you want to be on this podcast? And I was like, yeah, okay, let's talk about track coaching. That's cool. So tell me about this birding thing. Like, what is it? So I learned about birding. So there's
Yeah.
no judgment on what you do. I love this. So let's focus on uh, coaching track. So you start coaching in, I don't want to say the worst possible time, but summer 2020 wasn't the greatest time for track and field on any
Yeah.
level. You seem like someone that prepares, like doesn't like to not be prepared. And maybe you kind of learned your way into that a little bit too, from high school to college. What did you do? So you kind of were expecting him to say no. And then all of a sudden he said, yeah. What do you do? Because you want to be at least the best track coach that you can be. That's kind of the feeling I get from you. What do you do?
So for the first part, I think I I'm a good visual learner. So what I see, I replicate it and I try to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing was I watched Edgar do a lot of things, and that's how I became the coach that I am today, as far as track coach goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it from Edgar for the most part. Him, my high school coach, I've seen how they talk to athletes. I see how they coach certain things, and being able to be a part of our track camps that we have in the winter and in the fall, just seeing how certain things work, how certain things go, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even got to the point where he's kind of letting me run like my own long sprints group now, where I'm helping them, run their own workouts and stuff like that. So, he's given me some type of leadership in a way, with certain groups. So just watching him do stuff has helped me become the coach I am today.
Yeah. How much do you draw on your personal experience when you think about, first time college student, trying to take it all in, figure it all out, weren't a track kid, what wasn't a track first kid, didn't lift weights, things like that. How much of that experience do you draw on when you look at your freshmen and maybe even sophomore, juniors, and seniors? How much do you draw on when you look at and you're working with those athletes today as the coach?
Yeah, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have my meetings with them, I'm telling them too, like, hey, I know that you didn't lift in high school. The lifting here is going to be a lot more intense, right? Or I know that you probably didn't do the workouts that we're about to start doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that the adjustment is going to be hard, but I need you to understand that you have to buy in and you have to trust me, because that's what you're going to need in order to get through the rest of these years. And the quicker you do that, the quicker you'll be able to succeed at this program. So based off of everything that I've went through with Tech, that's what I'm able to give a lot of those freshmen. That's kind of how I build relationships with those freshmen, is letting them know I'm telling them my story.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're seeing my story, they're like, okay, so you do get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you do know what I'm going through right now, and you're being a big help at the moment. So that's kind of how, you know, I build that bridge between being a coach and talking with the athletes, and especially the freshmen.
You know, I have a huge soft spot in my heart for alums who coach at their alma mater. You know, when you're talking to that freshman and saying, "Hey, you know, you have a choice. You can or cannot, but you know, if you want to do better, you'll buy in early." Like I didn't buy in until sophomore year, and not that we, you know, you may not necessarily. I don't want to put words in your mouth, express it this way, but you know, one of the ways you could say it is like, you know, I have a little regret. Like, man, if I'd have bought in my freshman year, I don't know how good would I have been senior year.
That would have
Uh,
been great.
and to tell that story to a 18-year-old kid, and that 18-year-old kid can actually visual, because you went to school there, can actually visualize like, oh, there's Coach Smith-Jones on the track. Like I can see her, you know, not like having a picture like, oh, she went to North Carolina or, you know, the greatest university in the world, Troy University, you know, that you can't see that because you don't know that, you know, but it's like, oh, I see that. Oh, she had the same English 101 teacher that I did. Like, I just think alums at their alma mater, when you call to recruit a kid, you talk about how great the school is. You know how great I know it is. I went to school here. Like
Yeah,
I'm not telling you it's great because you know they give me a paycheck. I'm telling
yeah,
you it's great because I went here. That's how much I believe in this school. You know, how you don't have any example. Assuming I don't want to assume. Let's ask this quick yes or no question. You've been at Indiana Tech the whole time since starting coaching.
yes,
Yeah, okay. I assumed that. I just want to make sure. So you don't have any um, alternative to compare this to, but I'm curious, you know, Indiana Tech's program, uh, like uber successful. I mean, gosh, you guys, you know, it's interesting when you get into a program and, you know, if you get fourth at nationals, that's a bad year. It's like, oh man, we didn't win it this year. You
yeah,
know, yeah, that's a heck of an expectation to have. And you've done it in a longevity factor. It's one thing to have. I mean, you know, it's hard to win. We lose sight of that in track and field, that it's hard to win because we go to these meets and there's 20 something events on men and women's sides. There's always a winner, so we sometimes forget like winning is hard.
yeah,
So winning a conference title is hard, winning a national title is hard, and you've been able to do it multiple years in a row, being at such a high level. How much, because we talk about the mental side of track and field. You know, training's important. You got to train, you got
mhm,
to train properly. We talk about the mental side. How much is the like implied expectation that these kids have? I mean, they go to your school and it's a little, you know, they look in that trophy case and they're like, well, I don't want to be the reason that we stop winning those things. Like
yeah,
how much, I don't know if I've ever asked this before, how much of the implied expectation stress levels plays into their success?
a lot.
Mm.
And it's to the point where last year I started doing mental health sessions with athletes. I'll just say, listen, if you want to come in and talk about it, we can definitely do that. And we had like maybe 10 to 12 athletes every time come in and talk about
Mm.
the mental hardship they were having going into a meet, or how they felt after practice, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And a lot of them was like, okay, I'm the fastest person on the team, and I feel like everybody wants me to be Superman. Like I can't have an off practice. I can't have a down practice, because if I'm down, everybody thinks that, I suck all of a sudden,
Right.
and I have to be Superman for everybody. So now their mental is all messed up.
That's interesting.
Or you have a freshman coming in and they're like, so that's that. All right, I'm going to come in and I'm going to go 45, and I'm looking at
Mm.
them like, so what if you don't go
Ooh.
45?
Ooh, what a question. Like that hit me a little bit. Well, what if you don't? Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying in your first year that you're here, you really think you're going to go 45 when you're, let's say your PR is like 51,
Yeah. Well,
and you're like, all right, I'm going 45,
yeah.
and I'm like, and that's another thing. Like I always tell the athletes, make sure you have realistic goals.
Hmm.
Like don't. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but let's start with goals that are going to build up to that. You
Yeah.
can't automatically say I'm going 45 if you didn't even say you were going to go sub 49.
So how do you balance that? This is interesting. This has been going on from the dawn of time, but that's a great example. A kid who comes in at 51 and, right off the bat says, man, I'm going 45. There's a little bit of a balancing act here. So you're spot on. Love what you're talking about in regards to realistic goals, right? They have a thing called SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, related, related to the task at hand, and timely, a time goal. And so on one hand, you have this like, well, bro, maybe by your senior year, that would be amazing. Like, I'm going to win coach of the year if that happens because you 51, right? But on the other hand, you also, the mental game well enough. You can't crush the kid and be like, dude, you ain't never running for, like, come on, man. If you run 48, bravo, you got a heck of a career coming from 51. How do you balance that, like, mental side? Like, I want you to believe that you can win the gold medal, son, but we better be realistic here too, because you can't set them up like you're going to win the gold medal and they run 48, which would be amazing. They're like, man, I suck. You suck as my coach. I didn't run 45 like we said we were. How do you balance that realism versus belief in the bigger, I guess?
Yeah. So with that, I'm pretty much just asking them, like, what are you doing outside of here that you think you're going to run a certain time? Like, are you drinking properly? Are you getting enough rest? Are you going to see the trainers when you need to? Are you stretching afterwards? Like, I'm asking them all these other questions. If they say no, then my question back to them is, okay, so how are you set to run 45? So it's making them think about, what they're trying to do. But then I also bring in someone who's been at the program for a while, and I say, well, this person started here and they're at a 45, but this is how they got here. Mm-hmm. They didn't just make the big jump all the way down to a 45. They gradually got there. And then, they're like, well, I'm going to open up. I'm going to open up with a 46. I said, what's the point of opening up so fast for? You got a whole season. Like, relax. Just relax. Be patient and trust the process. I tell them that all the time. Just trust the process. If it's meant for you to have it, you'll have it. And at the end of the day, I always tell them, whatever your goals are, I'm going to coach you to that goal. So if you tell me you want to run 45, then we're going to train like you're going to run a 45. But if I see at any given time that you can't handle it, then I'm going to drop you back down. And you're just going to have to work your way back up.
Do you find, who do you find has more? I would deem a kid saying who ran 51 coming in as my freshman as a program, run 51 out of high school, saying they want to run 45 their freshman year. Maybe if they said their senior year, I don't know, I'd be less to rain on their parade, if you will. But freshman year, I'd be like, we need to have some realistic goals here. Who do you find has these unrealistic goals more? Is it the kid who has, I don't want to say has talent, has up to that point shown more like, who do you see has more of the unrealistic goals? A kid that comes into your program running 48 out of high school, that's a sharp mark, okay, and says, I want to run 45. So they've exhibited, pretty high talent. I mean, 48's a heck of I know in today's world that seems like pedestrian, but 48 is still fast.
That's still moving. Yeah.
Or that kid that comes in as a 51 second says, I want to run for 40. Who are you? And this is a generalization, but, and maybe you're like, oh man, it's 50-50 amongst the group. Who's coming in more with unrealistic expectations? The kids who are like, man, we might need a miracle on this, or the kid it's like, well, you got some talent, maybe.
Yeah. I think it comes off of their work ethic. Like, I can't make the decision and say, if you come in at 48, you're not going to be able to go 45. Like, I can tell based off of the work ethic. Like, if you're willing to put in the extra work, there's no reason why you couldn't. But it's the people who come in with unrealistic goals who do nothing outside of it. And they're just all talk. And they're like, hey, I want to come in and do this. And I'm like, yeah, you want to come in and do this, but what are you doing outside of this?
Which one do you see more? The person who comes in and actually does the things that they're supposed to do, or at least the majority of things, or the person who says, yeah, I want to run 45, but yet I'm missing practice and staying up till 1 o'clock. Which one do you see more in general? And this might be unfair for you to ask because, you're going to be answering about Indiana Tech because you've not coached anywhere else. So I'm just asking in general where maybe you see this.
I mean, I would say at the beginning, of my coaching, it was more so people who didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've like prepped a lot of the long sprinters and stuff like that, it's more
Mm-hmm.
so they're doing the extra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In my fifth year, they're doing a lot more of the extra stuff because they've seen other people buy in.
Culture. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, okay, this is gonna work.
And something you said, a question that you ask, and maybe you don't necessarily, you get us some more in depth here. Maybe you're not actually asking the kids this question, but it's a question that when you said it, I was like, oh man, because there's things that sometimes like, man, we're not supposed to say those things out loud. Like it's good, like we should be saying those things out loud, but to tell someone with a dream, whether it's a realistic or a stretched dream, let's call it, and what happens if you don't? Like that's a really important question because it's like, but it's like a dose. I mean, it's a punch in the face of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, reality. Not every
Yep.
goal gets set. How have you seen people react to that?
It's actually been pretty good. I haven't said it often,
Hmm. Hmm.
but to the people that I do say it to, they know that it's coming from a genuine place.
So it's a deep, serious question like that I talk about. It's that right hook, boy. Yes, that you're not the freshman first meeting says I want to earn 45. You're not like, all right. Well, what happens if you don't? This is a question that comes with after you've earned a lot of trust and
Yep.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I like that. That makes sense. What do you do? So let's keep talking about coaching here for just a little bit. You've been coaching now for going on 5 years. You talked about how, culture is changing in a positive manner because they know you and what your expectations are. What are you doing? You have your own business. That is busy enough. What are you doing coaching education wise? Are you doing level 1s, level 2s, USTFCAs? Are you doing more informal, which is just as important? Coaching education, calling up coaches. Obviously, you have coaches on your staff that are, really smart and accomplished. What are you doing to make Coach Smith a better coach?
Really, honestly, we've talked about it. Like me and Edgar, we've talked about it a few times of me trying to take like the level one certifications and the level twos, but I haven't done any of that stuff yet.
Mm-hmm.
I've really just been visually learning things
Mm-hmm.
pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And I pick the brains of them so much. Like
Mm-hmm.
like I'm asking a lot of questions, whether it be the head coach, the assistant coach, the jumps coach, the distance coach, throws coach, whatever the case may be. I'm asking a lot of questions just because I'm curious. I just want to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had the opportunity to do those type things just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely something that I would be really interested in doing.
Are you wanting to keep coaching?
I get asked that a lot.
Yeah, sure. And because you have competing, it sounds like I don't own my own business, and I didn't own my own business when I coached, but you're not. It's so interesting as we start transitioning over to the agency side. You don't work for another agency, meaning like, oh, I give 30 hours a week for them and then, 20, 30 hours for coaching. You own the joint. That's a whole different, I have so much respect for people who own their own businesses. I look at my boss, our owner here, and I've been here 18 years. I care. Like I care about these men and women that work for us. I care. I always say these four walls. I care about these four walls. I'm in charge of this. I shouldn't say I'm in charge. I'm responsible for this very old brand. It's over 100 years old. Gill is
Yeah.
for a very short amount of time. It's going to hopefully, live past me 100, 200 years. So I'm responsible for this very precious thing for a small amount. So I care. And then I look at my boss, the owner, and I go, oh, but you care more. like if it does all crumble, I could probably find another job.
Yeah.
If this all crumbles, you're holding the bag. You own the joint. So I have a lot of respect. Like, the most bravest thing I did professionally was I quit coaching and moved to Vegas and played poker for a living. That was brave in that sense, right? Some people would call that stupid, and you might be fair there too. Owning your own business is brave. Like I couldn't do it today. I'm a much better person. I'm a much better businessman today than I was before I came here. And I still would like, nah, I'm not good enough. It's too much for me, man. You own the business. So so I think it's a fair question when I say, do you want to keep, you won't be able to do both as capture grows. coaching grow, it's incompatible as far as two full-time jobs. There's only one of you really,
Yeah.
So let's transition to the sports agency. So for us, this includes this guy who really don't know much about what a sports agent does. Let's go 30,000 foot level. Tell us what does a sports agent do? What do you do? Why does an athlete have an agent? There's some assumptions. So let's
Yeah.
clear those up, whether they're true or not. Let's start there. What in the world does a sports agent do?
Yes. So a sports agent honestly just manages an athlete. And for me personally, it's on a lot of different levels. One day I can be the athlete's mentor. The next day I can be the athlete's mother. The next day I can be the athlete's sister. Or the next day I could be the athlete's best friend, or whatever the case may be. There's several ways that athletes need us as sports agents. And again, we are managing their personal lives, their professional lives. We're helping them build up their own brand. We're helping them become something other than an athlete. We're helping them, like, even on a track sense. Like, I don't really know too much on the track sense, but you're trying to help them get sponsors. You're trying to help them get to track meets where they can compete to get to the next level of either the world or the Olympics or whatever the case may be. You're trying to help them get those sponsorships so that they can get those things paid for and stuff like that. On the basketball side, that's pretty much what we're doing too, where we're trying to help them get on teams. We're negotiating contracts so that they can get paid more. Marketing side of things, we're trying to make sure they're getting the endorsements that they need, the sponsorships that they need. We're also trying to help them build up their community. If there's anything that they need to do in their community, we will help them do that as well, just to help them build that up, as well as network with people who say, for example, there's a basketball player who wants to get into broadcasting or they want to become a coach. We help navigate those ways so that they can connect with those people, so that when the opportunity comes, they have people that they can talk to and have a mentor and stuff like that. So it's a lot,
Yeah.
it comes with a lot for sure.
Gill today has hundreds of employees, but when they started, well, it was one, Harry Gill, the guy who started all right. Are you at this stage of the business, are you a solopreneur or do you have a team?
Yeah, we have there's like 2 or 3 of us, and then the
Okay.
rest are interns.
Okay. And I'm gonna ask this, do you, for your agency and then also like other agencies that you know of, do you focus on one or two sports, or is it like any athlete you might reach out to that would fit your profile? I'm assuming, and Chauntiel, we've known each other for all of an hour and a half here. You are allowed to smack my hand. I'm assuming a Michael Jordan-esque type person isn't reaching out to capture, like you wouldn't, at this point, you wouldn't even be able to really support that person properly. But there's other levels of athletes that you certainly do, like, oh yeah, we can really build you up, make you to a Michael Jordan one day. So are you focused on a sport or across sports, but at a certain stratum? Like we talk a lot about who our ideal customer is. Okay. When I teach podcasting class, I teach a class to help people start podcasts. I always tell them you need to find out who's your ideal listener. That is there are going to be other listeners, but who is that listener that you're after, right? So for us, it was like, I am after high school and college track coaches. We
Yep.
have athletes that listen to us. I'm not, I love that they listen. I love that you're out there listening right now, but I'm not targeting towards them. We have retired coaches that listen to you, and I love you guys and gals that are out there, but I'm not targeting them. I'm targeting you. And we had Carol Smith-Gilbert on the podcast. Like that, those are the people I'm trying to get to listen to the podcast. Is your ideal client today, that it changes today, in a certain sport or sports, or a certain stratum of like rookies or 8th round picks, not 1st round pick? Talk to us about that. Am I making that clear? I know nothing
Yeah.
about your profession, so I'm a little stumbling a little bit here.
No, so for the most part, what a lot of people don't know is, with a sports agent, you're only certified in the sports that you get certified in. So
Right. You told us
pretty
that.
much
Yep.
based off of the league. So you got the NFL, USATF,
Okay.
WNBA, stuff like that. So I'm registered with the WNBA and FIBA. So there's really no 1st round pick, 8th round pick. We're going full throttle.
Got it.
If we get 1st round pick, perfect. If they end up getting in the third round,
Got it.
so be it. They're still just as great as a first round pick.
So I get WNBA, FIBA. I know what FIBA is. We manufacture basketball equipment too, so I know what FIBA is. But FIBA is not a league. So what does it mean you're certified through FIBA? Does that mean you can do like international teams? Like because I know
Yeah.
there's international leagues, I should say, because I know there's like leagues in Europe and Italy and Australia. So that
Yep.
realm. Okay,
Yep. So
got it.
all of that is under FIBA. So
FIBA.
FIBA is the league, and then everything else is underneath that umbrella.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So let's focus on WNBA because I know a little bit about it, and it's it's one of the hot things right now going on. So
Yeah.
which is cool because you're a basketball player. Like it's kind of like you're like, man, that's I know I ran track, but I'm a hooper first and foremost, right? So what? How are you? How are you attracting clients? Like what? How do you? I mean, do you just call up Caitlin Clark or DM her on Instagram, be like, "Hey, man, you pretty good. You probably need an agent." Like, how do you actually go out and find your clients?
In this day and age, it's a lot of Instagram DMs. It's
Mhm.
Instagram DMs, but it's also who you know. It could be a
Mhm.
coach that's like, "Hey, I got this athlete. Take a look at them, see if you're interested." It could also be a family member, a parent that can reach out and say, "Hey, I see you're doing this. I have, my son or my daughter, who is coming out this year. Is there any way that you would be interested in doing anything like that?" So I've had all levels of that.
Mhm.
So there's really no straightforward way of how it happens. A lot of times it's DMs, a lot of times it comes from parents, a lot of times it comes from coaches as
Mhm.
well.
When you're reaching out to someone, do you have to? And there could be a lot of factors here. It could be the size of your agency. It could be that you're an African American. It could be that you're a woman. Do you have to like prove to them, like, yeah, I'm legit. Like I got my own website and everything. Like, or is there a little bit of like I don't not necessarily immediate trust, like, oh, I'm gonna sign away my house to her, but it's like, oh, maybe I should talk with her. Like, how's your experience been with that?
So for the most part, what we end up doing is when we reach out to them, we're still telling them like, "Hey, this is who we represent. We've been in business for this long."
So that's your street cred right off the bat, because then it's like,
Yeah,
oh, they're legit. This isn't some Yahoo here. They're real. Okay, okay.
yeah, yep. And then we always try to keep it transparent as possible with a lot of the athletes that we speak to as well.
Mm-hmm. So on the flip side, so that's you being active. On that other side that you were talking about, and first of all, before I forget, I love how your first words about describing the job, the profession was, sometimes I'm mom, sometimes I'm sister, sometimes I'm best friend, mentor, coach. Because it struck me, I watched the film. Did you watch the video of Tyreek Hill getting pulled over here in the
Hmm.
last few weeks, which was absolutely ridiculous, by the way. I mean,
Yeah,
we need to learn the word de-escalation, not escalation.
yeah.
Everybody in general. I won't say who I thought was maybe more in the wrong there, but anyway, I was not struck, but it struck me that Tyreek, when they started arresting him, ridiculous. I think his teammate, it was his teammate he was yelling at. He was yelling, "Call Drew, Drew Rosenhaus." Again, maybe the
Hmm.
more famous sport agent there is, right? And that would it struck me because it was like, wait a minute, that's your agent, bro. Like, why you better call
Yeah,
your lawyer? Because I assume he's got a lawyer, or call my mom, or why I don't. Well, I think he has his own issues there. Sorry, but I didn't know that Drew would be the first, and it was like repeat, like call Drew, just call Drew, like not also maybe call Bob. It was call Drew.
yeah.
Drew is the fixer. And we watch movies like um uh, God, show me the money. Come on, that's got to
Jerry
be a movie.
Maguire.
Okay, I was gonna say that's got to be a movie every sport agent watches like 100 times. Yeah, Jerry Maguire, thank you. And the things that agent and those guys did for it's everything. Um, so I love that you described it, that you kind of like corroborated those things, because you were like, yep, some days it's mom, coach, mentor, sister, but what do they need that day at that time?
Yep.
So I wanted to say that before I forgot. What I was curious about, so there's one thing you reaching out to others to try to earn business. There's the other side of like people reaching out to you that you mentioned. I imagine, you correct me where I'm wrong, you can't be everybody. You can't agent 100 people.
Mhm.
Properly, I guess I should say. You could, but you wouldn't be giving anybody attention, right? So there, you kind of have in your mind, or maybe even you're still learning, I can handle this many clients really well, whatever that number is. But you have other people who are like, oh man, no, my son, my daughter. Oh, Jordan, who? That's my daughter's the Caitlin Clark, who? That my daughter's the next one. And you've got to assess, are they right or wrong? Because it's almost like you're recruiting, like we do for college coaching, for crying out loud. You got to figure out, like, oh, are they legit or not legit?
Mhm.
If they are legit, oh, okay, thank God they're reaching out to me. The warm lead, let's go for it. Or I have to let this person down. And you mentioned it about it being kind of like a relationship business. If a basketball player knows something, they probably know other people. So you can't just be like, dude, you're no good. Don't contact me, because that could be the cousin of the next great, basketball player. And they remember how you told them they were no good, right? How do you handle that evaluation of the people that are being recommended or reaching out to you? How do you handle that, knowing you can only handle a certain amount?
My circle of agents that I know.
Okay.
So, because it's even happened to me as well, where one of my mentors are like, "Hey, I got too many athletes, or I have too many clients on my roster. I have an athlete right now who's looking for an agent. Check them out. Let me know if you're interested."
Okay.
That's kind of how it works when you
Yeah.
have those mentors and those agents that you trust and that you talk to. So that's kind of how we do it in the basketball world. Is it's like, hey, I already have so many clients on my roster. Do you have space? And if you have space, are you interested in this athlete?
Yeah. That's not unheard of in the college track coaching world too, where it's like, hey, I've got my allotment of short sprinters is up. I just can't. I have a cadre of coaches I really trust. They're probably not in your conference, I imagine. And so you call Joe on the way west side, away from me. Hey, you might look at Sally. I can't afford her. I've got too many or whatever. But you trust.
Yeah.
You have people you trust. That's interesting. How much of your time is spent with your athletes on? So there's contract, there's a lot of things, but contract negotiation when that time is right, and maybe that's always an ongoing thing because you're always thinking about negotiating the next contract. How much of your time is spent on trying to find the next brand deal for them to get a Oakley deal, or what? There's a billion, it's a cereal deal, whatever. How much of your time is spent on that?
A lot.
Mm.
It's like an ongoing thing. So because I'm also in the NIL space, and I just got into the track and field space, just got
Oh
my first track
yeah.
and field athlete, and so with that, it's a constant thing. So you're constantly trying to figure out, all right, like one of my clients who goes to Norfolk State just signed with Meta. So Meta has this NIL empowerment
Meta
program.
Meta is Facebook for people who don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on now. All right.
Yeah. So from that, a lot of brands see that and they're like, oh, okay. Well, is she available for this, and this? So what happens is I have to look through all these things and say, all right, she's not interested, or yes, she's interested. Let's get something going. I have her. She's gonna be in a parade, like a Norfolk parade during homecoming, and at that same time, her interview is going to be going on an MTV truck. I've never been on an MTV truck, so I don't know what that is, but
Wow.
we got that opportunity for her from a nonprofit called Stop the Violence 757 because
Oh,
she's
seven
against
five
gun
seven.
violence.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
So it's figuring out, what that athlete likes, what the athlete doesn't like, and everything like that, and trying to find everything in between. So it's it's not only finding the brands, but it's also putting them in contact with the right nonprofits, the right events that's going on,
Mhm.
trying to get them on panels, um, a little bit of everything, really. Just trying to build up their brand and give them the best opportunities that we can.
How much of it, and I'm glad you mentioned NIL. I want to talk about that in a second. But before that, so with your professional clients, how much today, what percentage would you say is that a brand reaches out, or shows interest when you reach out for an athlete, is based on their actual athleticism I'm gonna give three different things, and maybe there's a fourth. How much of it is their athleticism? Like, oh, this kid's I calibrate kid because I'm old now, but this kid's really good, So yeah, that's why we want our brand attached to them. How much of it is looks? That's a part of it, whether it's male or female. It's like, oh, they're not very good, but oh, okay, they're in society they're deemed very good looking. And or how much of it is oh, they're not very good, maybe they look like me, they're not that good looking, but they got a million followers on social, like, and maybe there's a fourth factor or fifth. What's the deciding factors for these brands to show interest in an athlete?
So all of those are factors.
Hmm.
The only thing you're missing is the location.
Oh, you
So
mentioned
let's say
757 Norfolk, Virginia area. Yeah, okay,
yep,
okay.
yep. So if you have, let's say you're University of Florida, right? And then you have an athlete from Indiana Tech. Or we're not even gonna do that. We're gonna say University of Florida, and then we're gonna use Butler,
Okay,
right?
okay. Yep. So
So
Indianapolis and Gainesville, Indianapolis, Indiana, Gainesville, Florida. Okay.
yep. So it's like, would a brand rather want to be used in Florida, where the University of Florida has so much attraction,
Mm-hmm.
from the football team, basketball team, whatever the case may be, even track, you can even go there.
Mm-hmm.
Or would you rather go to Butler, where there's not too much traction,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The Butler team, basketball team isn't getting that many looks. The
Mm-hmm.
football team isn't getting that many looks. You're going to go to Florida, right?
Maybe it depends on
Yeah,
depends on my brand too.
that too. So it's all based off of your location.
Right.
It also depends on, as much as they don't want to say it, how, like, the type of athlete that you are. Like, are you a good athlete or not?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
can you
Mm-hmm.
play or not?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
It,
And
it
it's
it feels
also,
like that's the one that should be the most, like, that should be the number one factor, and that's not true necessarily. There are plenty of people who are, air quotes here, not
yeah,
very good in their sport that are getting great deals because of
yeah,
some of these other factors. Right. Right.
yep. And like you said, marketability.
Hmm.
If you can be marketed anywhere, that's exactly where you're going to get your deals. And also, if you have the social media.
So
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 I
when
tell people all the time, if you have 20,000 followers on your Instagram, but only 220 people are liking your stuff, at some point you're going to say, I got ghost followers. And that's exactly what the brands see as well. They're like, okay, you have 20,000 followers, but you're only getting 220 likes. So what is that going to do for us if you sign with us? Like, we're not getting any looks at all.
yeah.
So
Okay, hold on, because I know enough about social media. Let's pause there real quick. I want to make sure flesh out this example you're giving of Florida and Butler. You, what I'm hearing you say is because of the national brand of Florida versus the national brand of Butler, you're more apt if you're an athlete that came from the University of Florida. Got it.
yes.
Okay. When I heard you say regional, because when you mentioned 757, that was important because we've had another Gill podcast guest here, the head coach of Hampton. So it
Mm-hmm.
was interesting when you said 757, and I know where Norfolk is, obviously, so it's a little bit of a cheat code, but I was like, oh, 757, I know exactly where that is because Maurice, Maurice from Hampton, he loves 757.
Yeah.
That's home. But so where I thought you were going, and this has to be a little bit of a factor when you said which one are you going to choose, the athlete who came from Butler or the athlete who came from Florida? And I'm like, well, it depends. If my brand, like, what's a like they're expanding, but let's go with it. Have you ever heard of Buc-ee's?
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever been to one?
Yeah.
Oh, they're amazing, right? But if I'm Buc-ee's, and let's take away that we know they're spreading to Alabama and Georgia and I think Tennessee now. Things. Let's just say they're a Texas-based first and foremost, right? Uh, in that scenario, they may not be interested in the Butler nor the Florida guy, but oh, the Texas State kid. That's
Mm-hmm.
in my state. Like more people in Texas are going to care about a Texas State kid than they are a Florida or a Butler. I was trying to think of an Indiana, like maybe Lucas Oil, because that's what the Colts. But so I was thinking like Lucas Oil maybe would be more interested in a Butler grad than a Florida grad. But I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. That the cachet um, um, of the undergrad comes with you a little bit there. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
which is
Especially with the national brand.
yeah, which is hard to hear, like a Butler who's recruiting against a Florida kid and they're like, oh, it's either Florida or Butler. And it's like, oh man, that stinks. Like they may take less to go to Florida because, well, Florida is going to mean more for branding deals. We used to talk about it, like, well, a Florida on your diploma is going to get you more interviews than a Butler. And maybe it's still, I don't necessarily believe that. But in the branding side, it's like, well, there's a lot more Gator alums and followers, not even
Yeah.
alums, just followers of UF's Instagram than they are as Butlers. Yeah, okay,
Yep.
I get that. I get that. I get that. Um, what did I put a pin in? There was something I put a pin in and said, let's come back to that. So you're talking about UF, branding deals. Oh, okay. Okay. Social media posts. So do you follow, come on, I'm about to either help you or you're gonna be like, yeah, duh, Mike. Do you follow or pay attention on social media to a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes.
Yeah, you better, right? Come on, man. So I know, I guess that's my guy. So that's where I learn my stuff from, right? So it's interesting knowing that not everybody's going to be a geek about social media as maybe a guy like me. It's like when you said, if someone has 20,000 followers, but you're only getting 200 likes, a brand manager, someone who you're probably talking to trying to make a deal is like, bro, should be a better ratio than that. But for us who actually know social media and how the algorithms are actually changing, you're not getting the same reach organically today that you were yesterday, for crying out loud. Like I almost think like, man, you got 20,000 followers, you got 200 likes. Are pretty good because there's so much vying for everybody's attention. I mean, you can think about your own scrolling through Instagram. How many times do you actually stop and like it and heart it, right? Some, you do some, and there's plenty that I know you actually did still see. And maybe even it caught your attention, but for one of a million reasons, you didn't actually like it. And now that person's being penalized, air quotes, because it's like, oh, well, that should have been 201, Mike. It's only 200. But and you may have been like, man, that was a really cool post. I just didn't, except for millions of reasons why you don't actually like it. So there's a lot going on with that. I wonder how much, and their brand manager, hopefully that means they got some kind of marketing spin to them as well, that they're understanding, at least paying attention to what's going on in the social media world and not punishing someone just because of that. What other factors are there? So we talked about, maybe how good or not good they are in their sport. We talked about maybe how society good looks they do or don't have. We talked about maybe how many social media followers they have. Maybe what undergrad they went to, so what kind of national brand is de facto attached to them. Any other factors that helps professional, in this case maybe WNBA, because that's kind of where we're focused on, get brand deals?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
In the W, it doesn't really matter what team you're on. It's all about exposure. If people are seeing you and they're seeing your social media, they're seeing you're out there on podcasts or the case may be, and they hear your story, they're like, hey, that story resonates with this campaign that we're about to put out right now. And then they're like, hey, we need you to be, our brand ambassador or endorse this product or whatever the case may be. So I think as long as that the exposure is there, and that you also have that social media, your exposure is there, and you're playing really good, I'm more than likely they're gonna find
you. I over index on social media, meaning, I'm on Twitter specifically all the time. I probably, not counting retweets and maybe not even counting comment. I comment more than I tweet, but just on tweets, I probably tweet on average, I don't know, 5 times probably a little bit lower average, probably 3-4 times a day on average, which is a lot when you think of, some people don't post 3-4 times a month, right? I'm doing that daily. And that's not including, I probably comment on average 15 times a day. And actually don't retweet all that much, but I'd be I'm over average. I'm above average on the amount of times I use Twitter in a day. That means, and it's true, and you maybe have seen this, there are people who are under average, meaning I'm not a social media person for many reasons. I don't like it. It's dumb. Who wants to hear about when I eat a sandwich and all that kind of stuff, which that's not what social media is for. But I'm kind of hearing you say, hey, if you don't have followers and engagement that way, I mean, that's what these brands are looking at. How do you counsel an athlete who says, I don't want to be on social?
it's hard. It's really hard because it's like you don't want to be on socials, but you want to do NIL.
Mm,
NIL is kind of about social media because if you think about it, when you do these deals with NIL, they're asking you to post on whatever platform you're strongest at. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whichever one you're best at,
mhm.
or whichever one you're more consistent on, they're going to say, we need you to make a feed post about this, and then we need you to make a story about this, and then we need you to make a reel about this. But if you don't do social media and you're not really into social media like that, it's going to be extremely hard
Mm,
for you to do it. And that's why I say they're looking at that. So if you have nothing but, say for example, let's do track athletes. If you have nothing but track photos on your social media and you're not showing anything outside of track, they don't know who you are. They don't know what you do
mm.
outside of that. They're like, I mean, they're just a track athlete. Like, I don't know if they are into nature. I don't know if they drink spring water. I don't know anything because all we see
Yeah,
is them taking media day photos and it's in their feed and that's all we see.
yeah. I think that's a really good piece of advice that you're obviously giving to your clients. If you're trying to attract brands, you don't know what brand's gonna see you. So like I think it's so interesting, like in the track world, Quincy Hall and
Mhm.
Ryan Krauser, they post a lot of they're big fishermen guys. They fish a lot. And I kind of pay attention to it because my son is a big fish guy too. But they'll post a lot of, oh, look at this bass I caught, or oh, can't wait to go fishing after the track meet, or because they're just being their authentic self.
Yeah.
One of those dudes is going to get some kind of, at least I won't say fairly lucrative, but enough that they'll be interested in deal from a
Mhm.
bait company or a boat company or a fishing clothing. I mean, there's a lot. We think of
Yep.
fishing as like, oh, it's just fishing. It's like, bro, there are a lot of businesses based around fishing. They're going to get
Mhm.
maybe this would be so cool. What if Ryan Krauser has you mentioned earlier, like, if one of my clients wants to be in broadcasting or something, I have to help them. What if Ryan wants to get in broadcasting and they broadcast fishing tournaments and some executive at ESPN sees Ryan and knows he's a great, world record holder and shot, but also sees all these fishing and goes, I wonder if he would, we need someone. I wonder if he would be interested. And that's the reason they call him. And he goes
Mhm.
on to become a great broadcaster in whatever sport he wants to do. But if you don't show that,
Yep.
no one knows. And I love
Yep.
how you're like, I don't know if you drink mineral water. Like, I love that. Like, who is athlete John Smith off of being an athlete? We know,
Yep.
and those are important. We need to know we want to know that you're a great athlete or whatever, but who else are you? Are you a math nerd? Are you a video game nerd? Are you a fishing nerd? Whatever. That's where more brands can start seeing like, oh, wait a minute. That means they reach that audience or at least can speak to
Yep.
that audience. So that helps me engage. Yeah.
Mhm.
So are you like, you mentioned, mentor, coach, mom, sister, all these things. Are you teacher slash educator with your clients as well? Of like, hey, here's how maybe you should run social media. Here's some ways to improve maybe your current social media and things like that as well.
Yep. We
Uh,
give we give social media calendars out to all of our clients
uh,
just to make sure that they have an example of what needs to be posted that day or whatever the case may be, just so that they're just not posting at all,
mhm,
so that they have something. I always tell athletes, regardless if you have or regardless if the brand is looking at you or not, post yourself using that. If that's something you use every day, tag them.
mhm,
If you drink what Core Life water all the time,
mhm,
tag them.
mhm, mhm,
Like if you wear a certain pair of spikes every time, tag them.
mhm, mhm,
Like they have to see that you are a what they call a loyal customer.
mhm,
And when they see that you're loyal, they will go and they were like, oh, okay. So you're constantly sharing our stuff, you're constantly using our stuff. I think it's about time that we bring you on,
Yeah, you have a
you know?
higher likelihood of that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
I agree with that. I'm I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast. I'm a Fortnite geek. I love playing Fortnite, and so I like watching this dude named Ninja uh, stream on Twitch and stuff like that. And he's huge. I mean, like he was the big guy in that
Yeah.
realm a while ago. Now he's just a big guy, like, plays Fortnite, and, on a daily basis, 10 to 20,000 people watch him play. And he plays at 8 in
Yeah.
the morning. I have to watch him on video on demand because I'm like, dude, you playing during work. I can't watch you when you live. But anyway, but he'll say things like, because he'll stream for 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours at a time, right? So he has to eat lunch and all these kind of things. And he'll say, oh, I'm ordering Chipotle. They don't sponsor me, but they should. Now maybe I shouldn't even mention them. And I'm like, bro, you ain't never gonna get mentioned if they don't know you love them.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you mention because you're ordering lunch online or on stream, and so you say it, and they don't sponsor you, well, they were never going to sponsor you anyway. So you're not like, I can't, coming from the business side here, I can't think of Chipotle goes, oh, thank God Ninja mentioned us. That saved us money. Now we don't have to sponsor them. Because you want to get more like, oh, I want him to talk about
Yeah.
how great it is, and maybe have the logo on the stream. Well, that we're going to pay for that if that's valuable to us. But if they weren't going to do it, they weren't going to do it anyway. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you do or don't. I don't want to give them free advertising. It's like, buddy, if they weren't anyway.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not just because you say, well, I don't want to mention the burrito bowl company that I use that, rhymes with Chipotle. They're not then going to, yeah. Anyway. All right, Chauntiel, let's wrap us up. What is something that we didn't talk about on the sports agency side that we should know? There's a lot of curious people. What's something that maybe I didn't ask or I should have asked? What's something on the sports agency you're like, man, people should know X?
I would say that what kind of got me where I am today is you got to have that mindset of you don't know everything. And you got to have that mindset of I have to continue learning no matter how far I get. And I think that shows something in my career because every time something comes up regarding NIL or being a sports agent, I'm going to it. Like I'm going to a seminar or I'm going to a conference or I'm going to a workshop to make sure that I'm gaining the additional education that I need so that I can better support my athletes as well as continue to grow the company. So that's that. Make sure that you do have that circle of mentors. Always network. It's funny because you brought up the Jerry Maguire thing. So the story or the movie that was about Lee Steinberg is actually one of my mentors.
Oh,
yeah,
because I said Drew is like maybe the most popular. Lee Steinberg is the grand poobah of popular sports agency. Wow,
yes, that's my guy. I love that guy.
dude.
Yes, he's
Lots of
cool.
lessons to learn from him.
Yes, for sure, and he has all the nuggets. So, so yeah, just continuously growing, continuously trying to network with people. It doesn't matter where they are, where you are. Networking is key. And I see this all the time. People say your network is your net worth, and that is so true because if you're not networking with the right people, then you fall short of those people that you could possibly network with, taking you to the next level, or even putting you underneath their arm, leading you and guiding you in the right direction. I think that's what I've gotten from my mentors is them leading me and guiding me in the right direction and being able to ask them questions and lean on them a little bit and say, hey, I'm struggling here. What advice do you have for me? And it's cool because they'll answer me and they can be at a football game or something like that and they're responding and still answering. So it's super amazing. I think I have maybe 6 or 7 agents who are my mentors, trying to get more on the track side. So I've been working on that, trying to get a few more track people to be my mentors and stuff like that. You said one of them. Hope she hits me back on LinkedIn, but
Well,
Georgia,
I love, I asked you about sports agency and what we should know and your advice that you gave there. What I love about that is that's great advice for any career. Specifically, we're talking to vast majority of track coaches here. That first advice you said, I had to write it down. You've got to have the mindset that you don't know everything. What a great piece of advice for a track coach, sport agent, salesman. I mean, boy, just in parenthood, just in like a spouse, you mentioned your husband, being a husband or a wife, that's a good mentality to have. Is like, I don't know everything, because if I say I do, I'm just gonna get in trouble. So
Yep.
that's just great advice in general to even young athletes. Have that mindset of I don't know everything, and then go learn it all. Go just keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. I love that. And then the idea of the role of mentors in your life. I think that's just, that's a topic that probably comes up in 99.9% of every podcast that we have here is, man, if it weren't for coach so-and-so, if it weren't for, my parent or, another coach that took me under their wing, man, where would I be? I don't know where I'd be. There's an old saying, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go
Yep.
far, go with others. And boy, I think we all at least somewhat think long term. So it means you want to go far. Well, that means you better go with others, and you better pack the bag and help others to get to their destination as well. So I love that. All right, Chauntiel, end us up here as you stare into 2025 coming up. It seems like tomorrow, 2026, as you get to define what the future is here. What's got you excited? What kind of goals, excitement do you have coming up here as you look into the future?
Ooh, man. We might have our first WNBA draft pick this year
Nice.
or 2025.
Yeah.
Um, Hoping that we can bring back another title or
Yeah.
something this season in track, But yeah, that's mostly it for the most part. Just trying to continue to grow the company. Trying to make sure we can get a little more track people for NIL.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's pretty much it.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's one thing to, this is my third career. I was a track coach, professional poker player now. So I didn't come here until I was 30 years old. I'm pretty good at what I do now. But I had to wait till 30 years old to figure out, like, this is what I was put on earth for. Was here. It was to uplift and honor track coaches, and help serve them through track and field equipment. You found this, even though, you started this whole podcast off going, I didn't start running track until freshman year in high school. I was like, oh man, that's average. There are plenty of people who don't start till senior year or not until college. And the reverse is true. People that start at 6 years old. But you did start early, even though you went into college not. Your story is one that you would maybe typically think like, oh man, since she watched Jerry Maguire in high school, well, that's been her goal. She want to be a sports agent. You didn't know that's what you wanted to do as you went into college, and then you found this thing in junior year, and boy, true sprinter here. You certainly weren't saving your energy for this one. You took off. That starting gun happened on being a sports agent. You're like, let's go, and created your own company, your own agency. That's really exciting. I mean, that's just so fun to see
Thank
the
you.
growth. So just super excited as you continue to pour into young people as a track coach, as you help young people transition from collegiate athlete to, a professional world. What you do as a sports agent is not unlike what we do as a track coach. It's what we learned today, at least. With a track coach, we're going to be much more focused on, okay, well, how do we get faster or jump farther or whatever our event is. You're doing very similar coaching things as a sports agent. We're finding out, how do you get your social media on point? We didn't touch on things like, how do you talk to media and stuff like that, but I'm sure you're doing that. You're probably giving maybe some financial advice of like, hey, make sure you're putting money away, don't spend it all. Things like you're doing coach type activities, just in a different sport, if you will, of professional athlete. That's the sport, professional athlete, no matter what sport they're actually playing. So it's really cool to see you pouring into young people like that in all aspects of your life, track coach and sports agency. It's really neat, really neat.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you joined us. I think everybody's story is super unique, and I want to share every track coach's story out there. But there's some that I'm just always curious because I just know nothing about it. And so I have certainly embraced your recommendation of, well, keep learning. Like I'll always stay curious. I just love being curious. And so when I see this track coach doing both, it's like, well, wait a minute. First of all, how do you do both? Second of all, what is this? I think I know what it is, but I found out I don't know nothing. So I'm so glad you joined us to teach us all about it. I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you this last thing.
Yeah.
So I'm part-time, so I have time where I can just dip off places. So the Final Four, you can't reach me as track coach. I'm I'm unavailable during the Final Four.
Hey, I hear it. And I bless that because, what I see is the over indexing of the other side where track coaches, we make our identity number one as a track coach. And, there's no bigger fan of track coaches than this guy right here. But that's got to be like your third or fourth identity. You're wherever you are in your faith, you're a husband or a wife, you're a spouse, you're a son or a daughter. Like there's other roles that are more important than track coach. So I recommend, chastise some coaches of like, hey man, you need to take a vacation. You need to have another hobby. There's got to be something. It can't be 24/7 track coaching. It can't be. I
Yeah.
don't know how many people are successful. So I love that you have this, other life, if you will. You're kind of like Batman. You put on your suit and then bam, I'm a sports agent. So I think
Yeah.
it's super, super healthy. And, wouldn't surprise me, even as your agency is going to continue to grow, no doubt you're going to be very successful there. Something tells me you're going to keep some kind of toe in the water track coaching where it might diminish time wise. So maybe it's, you volunteer for a youth program a couple of days a week, but there's something that tells me there's going to be a little bit of there's always some segment of track coaching in there, and we're going to be better for it. That's for sure.
I think you can see the future.
I get decently at it. My wife never believes me, but it always comes true. Now, Chauntiel, thank you so, so much. The most valuable thing that you can give me is your time. And I know, gosh, you're running two things full time. So, I know how valuable your time is. Really, really grateful that you'd sit down and spend some time with us and help educate us and share your journey. Your journey is important. And so just really appreciate your openness and authenticity today. It's going to help a lot of people. And I hope you had a good time with it as well today.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you guys for being here. I'm humbled, always amazed at how many of you choose to press play on a weekly basis for this podcast. And, I know it's a very small part due to me, meaning, I help provide the avenue to do this, but I know it's a huge part of these men and women that, it's not easy to sit down here and kind of bare your soul of where you've been and what you did and how you did it and things like that, knowing that a lot of people are going to listen, but I'm always grateful that they do. And I'm always grateful that you're here to listen and watch us as well. So join us next week. We'll do it all over again and have some fun. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.